This episode of Brains on Games will preview a game that combines card battling with a phone app. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald, and this episode we are going to talk about an upcoming game. It's coming to crowdfunding soon. That's all about it's a two-player card battling game where your card's actions are carried out on a phone app. It is a game called Rise of the Gummies by Pillow Fort Games. Now, this game, the prototype that I received came in a package that it was an envelope with a deck of cards and a stand for you to stand your phone on so that you can use the app with these cards. So I don't have a box to show you, but of course, through the wonders of technology, we'll fix it in post. Rise of the Gummies is a two-player game. Like I said, it works for kids aged 8 and up. It doesn't take too much to understand this game, and you can play a game in only about 15 minutes. Let's take a deeper look at Rise of the Gummies. Rise of the Gummies is a light battling game. What you're trying to do is stack your gumdrops up so that they're higher than your opponents. You want to have the highest stack in 5 rounds. So you're playing to the best of 5 and you're trying to stack up those gummies as high as possible. That's how you're going to win. You start by combining 2 of these decks. So in the demo version that I received, there are 4 different planets to choose from. There's bubblegum and cinnamon gummies. And anyway, there's 4 different planets that you could take your decks from. And you smash 2 of those decks together, a little bit like Smash Up. You shuffle up those cards and then you start battling. Now, I've laid out all the cards here, and the reason for that is that if I put my phone or my iPad on the table, all you're going to get is reflections from the light, so it's not going to show up properly. But I did do a screen capture of the games that I played, so we'll have some videos along the way so that you can see what this thing looks like. So you're going to have a couple of decks of cards. You're going to have your phone. Your device is going to be standing on the stand like this, and you're showing your cards to the device camera. The gummy on the card is going to jump off the card onto your screen, and then that's going to be added to your stack, and the stacks get higher and higher as you go. So you smash your 2 decks together. You're going to have a 5-card hand, and then each player is going to reveal a card to the camera, both at the same time. The gummies appear on the screen. The person with the highest stack is going to be the winner of that round. So the winner of the round is going to get a point for winning the round. The loser gets a resource called Salt, and the app tracks all of this stuff, so you don't even have to worry about activating powers or anything like that. The app will recognize the cards and do it for you. And the Salt is often required for your gummies to activate these special powers that they have. And that's where the game gets kind of interesting. So some of these gummies have abilities that don't require any salt to activate, and it might mean that they can grow bigger, or they can add sugar cubes on top, or they can eat other gummies or they can attack the opponent's stack and make it a little bit shorter. Some of the gummies have these anti-gravity powers, and they either fly up higher or they stay in place. Even if the lower part of your stack gets attacked, it stays the same height. So there are lots of different abilities, but if you lose a round, you get this Salt, and that could potentially allow you to activate a powerful ability in the next round. Now, there are 3 important things on these cards. I mean, in addition to the art, you can see the cute artwork on these gummies. One is the height, how tall your gummy is going to be when you add it to your stack. Then they've got this little number with the sugar cube beside it. The sugar cubes are temporary height that gets added. So when I play this card, I'm going to have 1 little gummy that's 1 unit in height, and then 4 sugar cubes are going to get added on top. They'll disappear at the end of the round, but they give me that extra height boost that might allow me to win that round. Lots of these cards work together. So there are combos that you can create as you add different characters to your stack. You might get one that's going to grow each time a larger gummy is added. You might get one that will do an attack and make your opponent's stack shorter if you add a certain kind of a card. Sometimes there are other gummies that get attracted to your stack if you do certain things, and certain specific cards can work together too to activate these extra abilities. And you see all of that play out on the screen once both players have revealed their cards. Now, I say both players. It is a two-player game, but with the app, you can play it just with one player by yourself. And it's a little bit more like playing a phone game than it is an actual card game, although you do have the physical cards that you're showing to the camera. One of the things that's great about the app is that as those abilities play out, it can be set up so that it shows you what each power is doing as you add these new gummies to the stack. So it'll tell you, okay, you're going to get 3 extra height this round, or I'm going to attack because you added a larger. So it's kind of giving you a reminder of what's in your stack each round. And that really brings us to what are the skills that you're working on when you play a game like Rise of the Gummies. And one of those skills is memory. You're trying to remember what's on your stack so that the next gummy that you add, the next card that you play, is going to benefit you optimally. You're trying to get the highest stack each time. So you need to remember what abilities are there and your opponent's abilities as well, and how those are going to play out. I know there was one card where you'll be adding melting gummies and your stack gets higher depending on how many, or there are attacks that might happen depending on how many melting gummies are in your stack. So there are a lot of combos to remember. The game reminds you each round what's in your stack, but players are going to need to remember what's there when they're choosing which card they want to play each round. There's also some working memory involvement there. So it's not just that short-term memory of what's in your stack. You've got 5 cards in your hand every turn, and you've got to look at all of those abilities and consider what's already in your stack before you choose which one to play, because again, you're trying to maximize the height and make sure that your opponent's not going to be able to sabotage your stack of gummies and wind up winning the round. Maybe you're going to throw around because you want to get that salt for the next round so that you can activate a power of a card in your hand. But you are juggling some information in memory. And working memory is like the whiteboard in your mind, where you keep information so that you can juggle it around. And that's really a requirement here for these kinds of card games where you're playing over multiple rounds, but things are kind of stacking and you're doing a bit of multitasking when you are considering the 5 different cards and all of the abilities of the gummies that are already in your stack. Those stacks do get really high when you're trying to win. If it's best, first to 5, you might be playing up to 9 games before a winner is decided. So we had stacks that were well over 30 gummies high in some of the games that we played. So there are those memory components, working memory and short-term memory, maybe even slightly longer-term memory, and you're doing a lot of mental math too, because you are calculating how much height am I going to add. When I play this card, it's going to add 2 height, plus there's the extra 2 sugar cubes, plus it's going to activate this ability, and that's going to affect these other things. So there is some mental math involved as well. So lots of memory. Working memory is important for mental math because you're not just remembering the numbers. As soon as you add them together now, you're juggling those numbers in your mind, and it does become, working memory is a requirement when you're trying to do mental math skills, and then you're practicing the calculations as well. Final thoughts about Rise of the Gummies. Well, I think this might be the first hybrid game that I've played where you've got physical cards and pieces and they're working together with an app. I'm trying to think if there's been another game like that, and I can't off the top of my head. I've had apps that will keep track of scoring and things like that, but not an app that is really integrated with the game. And I really wasn't sure at first what I was going to think about this, because of course, I started this whole channel. It was all about getting families together to play analog games. And here's a game that uses an app, and most of the things are happening on the screen as opposed to on the tabletop. But it does combine those physical cards, and it does feel like those battling card games where you're dueling with one another. There's an attack just shows a gummy kind of knocking into the other stack and it goes down in height by 1. So it's not overly violent, but it does feel like those battling card games where really you're trying to set up these combinations of cards. So it does, even though a lot of things are happening on the screen, it still does feel like you're playing a card game. And I was surprised by how much I played this with another grown-up. I didn't get to play it with my kids. my friend was over. We played I think we played Caper Europe and we played the Duke. So we were playing some heavy strategy games and we played this in between. Now, I thought maybe we would play it just a few times so that I could kind of figure out what it was all about. But we liked it and we just kept going. So we played several games of this just for fun. Now, I also tried it out just on my own in the one-player version against the CPU just to see what it was all about and to make sure that the tech was working before my friend came over. But we did have a good time playing this game. It's not serious. I mean, it's super light. The graphics are silly. The characters are silly looking. The combos are fun and they're funny. So even though this is kind of an app-based game, and I did have some reservations about it, we wound up having a lot of fun playing Rise of the Gummies. So I was surprised, and I would say this is, like I mentioned, this is a channel that's all about getting kids out of their room, away from the screens to play more analog-style games. But when you've got a kid who's kind of really hooked on those screens, this is almost like an intermediate step, and I could see how this would bring a video game player into the world of sort of modern card games and modern board games that work for kids, because like I said, this is a fun game. It's got good graphics. The app was fun to use. Well, you saw the graphics on the app. The graphics on the app are great. So, even for adults, we had a good time playing this thing, and I'm sure the kids would love it too. I do see it as that intermediate step, as a gateway of getting kids into those more modern card games where they're playing completely analog as opposed to this hybrid model. But my gosh, I was so surprised by how much we enjoyed the hybrid. Now, are there downsides other than the fact that we're working with an app here? Well, you do need to have a room that's well lit because every once in a while, we would have a reflection on the card. We had to angle the cards a certain way sometimes. Now, the app, this is a pre-release app, so it's not even in its final form. 99.9% of the time, it worked perfectly. Every once in a while, we weren't holding the card right. We had to turn it around a little bit. We had to make sure that the lights were bright enough in the room where we were playing so that the camera could see those cards. I couldn't get the app. It was no trouble getting the app installed and working on an iPhone. I couldn't get it working on an iPad. I thought having an iPad maybe here for filming so that there would be a larger picture that you could see and I wouldn't have to do everything in post. But the app would work, but it didn't see the cards on the camera on the iPad, but it was no trouble getting it working on an iPhone. I know there's an Android version of the app, but I haven't tested that one out. We've got all iPhones here, so that's what we were using, was an iPhone. So the downside, there may be some technical hiccups. It is an app, and it'll be updated as we go. It is a game that does involve that technology. It's not completely analog, but my goodness, what a fun game. We did have a good time playing it, like I said, so thanks so much to Pillow Fort Games for sending Rise of the Gummies my way. I will put information about the crowdfunding campaign in the show notes of the video. If you have any questions or comments about this game or suggestions for Brains on Games, don't hesitate to leave a comment below the video, or you can email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will go. Previous ones are up there already. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed, so we're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.